Hello and welcome to Alex's Model Kits. This is just a quick update, just talking about the two kits I'm working on at the moment. These are part of the All at Sea group build, which has been going on for a little while now, and I'm working on two kits. The first is the Airfix Supermarine Seafire Mark 17 in 1/48 scale, which is this kit here. I've done a little bit of work. I've pretty much got the cockpit sorted out. I've got the fuselage joined pretty much just at the tail only at the moment, and left a gap. I'm working on the prop, which is over here. That was glossed for decals a couple of days ago, so I'm going to, hopefully after this video, just put some decals on. There needs to be some decals on the props themselves, and also in the gaps in between where the props come out. So it's pretty simpler to do that while it's all separate, and then glue it together and then attach it onto the kit after that. I'm also going to make the I'm going to paint the fuselage before I put the prop into place, just to try and keep that crispness between the fuselage and the prop spinner. The top half will all be a dark sea grey, and then the bottom half is going to be beige, so it needs a third coat of beige under there to get that sort of a little bit deeper and more even. And then once that's been done, I'll mask it off and then start painting the fuselage top part. And the same goes with things like the wings. The undersides are pretty much done, but the top sides are yet to be done. I think after my experience with the Whitley, where I painted everything separately and then joined them all together, that caught me out. But I think the Whitley was a new tooling, and I think it was moulded with a finer tolerance than some of these older kits. This is not such a new tooling, and so this is pretty much the way I normally tend to make kits. I tend to try and pre-paint as much as I can, and then join them together and then deal with any issues after that. And so that's the plan. It'll be to try and pre-paint as much as I can really on this, and then join it together and deal with the issues. I think with the sea grey, what I'll probably do is I'll probably do one or maybe two light coats of sea grey, and then where things like the main part of the wing joins up, I'll probably do a couple more coats after that once it's all joined together to make it look a bit more of a unified sort of paint job really. So that's the plan with that. In terms of the cockpit, I did a little bit of detailing. I think in my last video I was talking about how the photographs I had from my war paint book, photographs of the cockpit, made it look quite busy and tatty, and that the cockpit I had was a little bit too simple. It didn't have that kind of busyness about it, and so I tried adding a few cables and wires, and what I used essentially for that was thread, to try and simulate the cables that were in the cockpit area, and that's okay. I probably stopped too soon. I think I started it and then started to feel I ran the risk. I wasn't happy with it. I think I felt that it was due to be, potentially it's going to go wrong, and so I stopped after just a few here and there. It kind of gave the impression, it did enough to show that there was cabling in there, but it hasn't looked as busy as I'd planned, and I couldn't quite figure out why. Someone suggested that I use fine wire, and I had thought about that. I had some wiring kicking around from a different project, some electrical wire kicking around for a different project, and so I thought what I'd do is strip off the insulation and then unbraid it, but as it turns out, the wire itself was just a single thick strand, rather than braided. Someone's at the door. Would you excuse me? Hello again. Sorry about that. Like I say, someone at the front door. So we were talking about the Spitfire. So Spitfire, the cockpit is pretty much, as I said, pretty much done. I think that in the future, the detailing, I would probably look at using a combination of thread and wire. I think the thread looks pretty good for the cabling side of things, but I think it needs wire in there as well to kind of give that proper effect, and I haven't got any wire that I can use. So so it's an interesting thing for me to learn, and something I'll bear in mind for future kits. So on to the Langton's 1/1200 scale sailing ship, which is this here. This is coming along quite well, actually. The hull is pretty much painted. I need to tidy up where the yellow and the black meet for the sides. As you can see, for those of you that know anything about Napoleonic sailing ships, the kind of traditional colour scheme for the Royal Navy and for other navies later on is what's called the Nelson checker, where you have this yellow band, and then where the two decks are, because you've got essentially two rows of guns, you've got a lower deck and a mid deck, there'd be a black line, and then for each gun port there would be, the gun ports themselves would be in black, and that's known as a Nelson checker. I'm not too sure where the Nelson checker comes from. I'm not sure if it's a myth. There's a strong myth, story, fact, I'm not sure which, that it's called Nelson checker because Admiral Lord Nelson introduced it onto his fleet to make it easy for British captains to distinguish friend from foe. But by the time of Trafalgar, I think most sides were using it anyway. I think it got adopted by the French and the Spanish pretty quickly as well. So it's known as a Nelson checker, but whether it's attributed to Nelson or not, I don't really know. It's also fair to say that whilst it's known as a Nelson checker, it's not the uniform, it's not the standard colour. There was no colour scheme for ships of this era. It's pretty much down to the captain to pretty much paint it as he wanted, and most captains are fairly conservative. They're not going to be outlandish in things, and so they're not going to suddenly go for bright pink or purple or whatever else, but they would have their own personality. They would have their own view on how they wanted a ship to look, and certainly just this broad yellow stripe wouldn't be unreasonable. So I'm leaving it at that, just to add a bit of interest. I might do a bit of research and see if I can think of a ship that would be of this configuration that I might be able to base it on. I'll have a look around and see what I can find, but if I don't, I might just leave it as generic British 74 gun ship with a single yellow stripe. So the sides pretty much need a bit of painting up and tidying up. The front, there's a bit of detail work which you can't really see, but there's a bit of detail work that needs to be done for the front, and also on the stern gallery. They would be quite brightly decorated. Before Napoleonic sort of sailing ships, before that period, they would be decorated with gold leaf. That turned out to be too expensive, as you might expect, and it got replaced with yellow paint. So I need to put some yellow decoration on the back there. The sails are pretty much, sails are not done, but the masts are pretty much done. I need to do a bit of work on the masts to get those just tidied up a bit more, and then at that point I need to look at doing the sails. The lower sails here these are all white metal, and these are furled, so they are basically wrapped up and tied to the yards that hold them. It's the upper sails which are going to be extended out and catching the wind to propel the ship forward. So that needs to be done next. So I think reasonable progress, and more to come. So that is essentially it so far. I don't feel like I've got much to show you for the amount of time I've been sat here, but I think it's reasonable progress. So that's pretty good. Right then, I'll leave you to it. Before I go, I just want to say that I'm not sure if you can hear that. I have an ancient cat who, for some reason, decides that she needs to yowl around the house. So apologies if you can hear that. So yes, before I go, I just want to say that some of you may know that Ian Poulton, who is UK Scale Modeller on YouTube, he's the chap who has organised this group build, and he is pretty much, I think, kind of core to a group of model makers and that social aspect of things. For those of you who know him on Facebook, you'll have seen that he had a recent unexpected stay in hospital. I believe he's out now, but I'm sure you'll join me in wishing him well and hoping he makes a speedy recovery, and that whatever it was gets sorted out very quickly indeed. All right then, so I shall leave you to it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again very soon. All right, thanks then. Bye.